At Granger, we're for the ones who pay attention to every little detail. The ones who fuss, tinker, and sweat the small stuff. Because you know the tiniest thing can make the biggest difference when it comes to keeping business moving. We get it. We're the same way. Offering access to product experts to help you quickly and easily find what you need. So whatever your industry, you know you're always getting professional-grade products. Call, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast, where we talk about the continual pursuit of the section hiker.
And I'll spread the word, and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come. And we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Welcome back to Jester Section Hiker, the premier podcast with the spotlight on section hikers. I'm your host, Julie Jester Gayhart, and this is the podcast where you will hear stories about everyday people who, in addition to their everyday lives, make the commitment to hike long-distance trails where every section is a new beginning. On today's episode, we are going to be talking with our guest about his section hiking to complete all of the trails in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, the SB6K Carolina Mountain Club Challenge, and his section hiking on the Appalachian Trail. He is a brand ambassador for New Balance and Scratch Labs, started a Facebook group page titled Hiking the Smokies, and shares his adventures on YouTube. You can easily find him on the social media outlets by searching for Johnny on the Trail. Please join me in welcoming to the podcast Johnny Osborne, or known in the hiking community as Johnny on the Trail.
Hey, Julie, how are you?
I'm good, Johnny. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Johnny, we have a lot to talk about.
Oh, my goodness. All right, let's go.
And we're already laughing, so here we go.
Yeah, that's right.
Just so the listeners know, a little bit of background on you. You've actually done a lot of running, 3 marathons, about 14 half marathons. Mm-hmm. And I guess that wasn't good enough. So, so back in the spring of 2015, you stated to me that you wanted to step out of your comfort zone for your birthday and decided to section hike part of the Appalachian Trail that goes through the Smoky Mountains. All right, Johnny, I guess running and doing marathons wasn't good enough for you. So talk to us about what that statement means and why the AT in the Smokies.
Well, I wanted to do a long hike. I wanted to go out and backpack for several days, and I decided on the AT for my birthday. For one, I was doing this 900-mile map, and I thought it would be great to just get out on my birthday and start at Fontana and hike through to Davenport Gap, Interstate I-40, which was about 70 or 80 miles through hike in about 4 or 5 days.
All right. And I think when you and I originally talked, a lot went down on that section hike. So I want to kind of get right to that. And that has to deal with a lot about your gear that you started off with on that section hike. So that section is about 78 miles. So typically, I mean, you're talking 5 to 7 days. So Johnny, how much do you think your pack weighed originally when you set foot to start off?
Oh my goodness, my pack was so heavy. It was probably over 50 pounds. I had
Johnny.
clothes. I know.
Now, you did tell me something. How did you put your pack on? It took me right back to the PCT movie where she was in the hotel room and had to lay on the floor to get her pack on. Is that what was going on, Johnny?
Yeah, that was the same for me. I remember setting my pack up on the wall, and I would have to bend down, squat down, and put my shoulder straps on, and then stand up with my pack. It was so heavy.
And that wasn't an indication right there.
That's right. That's right.
All right, so let's talk about your clothes. How many clothes did you have in that pack?
Oh, I had way too many. I packed fresh clothes for every day. This was really my first longer backpack trip. So I had clothes for every day, which way more than what I needed.
So when you say you had clothes for every day, was that like a new shirt, new shorts, like
Yes.
everything?
Yep. New shirt, new shorts, everything, new socks every day.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. Just way too much stuff.
And then your food.
Yeah. I took food for like 7 days because I didn't really know. I mean, I thought that I think I packed about 1.5 pounds of food per day.
And that's typically not bad. So what did
Right.
you have? What was in that food bag?
I had it broke down to like, morning and night snacks throughout the day. I always had like my breakfast separated and in one bag, and I knew that was my breakfast stuff for each day, and same for my dinner.
Could you find your food in there, Johnny? Is the
Oh
question.
my God,
Could you?
that's a great question. My food bag was really really full. It was probably it's probably the heaviest item in my backpack.
Gotcha. And something went down with your tent too. So what went down with the
hmm
tent during that week?
I realized really quickly that in the Smokies, if you're not through hiking, I think you have to start 50 miles outside of the Smokies to use a tent on the AT. Unless you're section hiking, you can't really use a tent. You have to use those shelters, which is fine. And I wasn't sure. I didn't know if the shelters would be full or not. And they were full. Some were full, but they always made room for me to get in. But about halfway through, though, I ended up. I had telephone service one evening. I called my dad, and he luckily came and met me at Cleman's Dome, and I dropped a lot of weight. Dropped a lot of weight. Dropped all my clothes that I didn't need.
I might laugh about that for a long, long time,
Yeah,
Johnny. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
That's, oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I haven't done that since, but that was something that I learned from. You don't need those things.
Right, right. And what size was your tent?
It was a 2-person tent. My friend
Okay.
used it for her through hike on the AT.
Well, that was good, Johnny, because I thought for sure you were going to tell me it was like a 9-person Coleman tent.
No, not quite.
And somewhere along the way, somebody started calling you unpack and repack. So what was going on with
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, so every night into camp, I had a difficult time finding items in my backpack, whether it was my food or my toiletry bag or whatever. And so every night at camp, I would unpack my backpack and then I would repack it in a way I thought was better for me. It still wasn't. I still had to unpack every day and and repack. So they kind of called me repack for some of that. But yeah, it was quite fun.
Nice. So I think the moral of the story is, quite honestly, Johnny, I feel like we've all done that, and we've had
Uh-huh.
some good fun laughing with you. So, just in that 78 miles alone, tell us some things that you learned, what you don't need in your pack versus what you do need in your pack.
I think the things that we do need are essential items for sure. Of course, our toiletries and our food and water, filter, that type of things. Things we don't need. I mean, I learned really quickly that the same pair of shorts 3 or 4 days in a row is fine. Same with pants. So now when I go out on backpack trips, I'm taking a pair of shorts, a pair of pants, and that's
Right.
generally my entire clothing. I always pack extra pair of socks. You never know when you may get your feet wet, and it's nice to have dry socks.
Very true. Very true. So I would say the Johnny that went through on his section hike of the AT and what he packed then is not the Johnny that we're getting ready to talk to about the Great Smoky Mountains National Park 900 miler.
Exactly.
So it'll be interesting to see how you've progressed here. So I know
Yeah.
you grew up pretty close to the Smoky Mountains
Mhm.
and you grew up hiking and had a love for the mountains. So I want to start talking about how you took on and completed the Great Smoky Mountains National Park 900 miler. But I first want you to give the listeners a little bit of background information. So, what exactly is the Great Smoky Mountains National Park 900 miler?
Okay. The 900 miler, it was founded in 1995 by Lou Murray, and she section hiked the entire AT. And since she was one of the founders, she was one of the first ones to complete all the trails in the Smokies. And basically, the 900 miler is just that. It's hiking every maintained trail that the Great Smoky Mountains maintains.
And I think there's 817 miles of actual maintained trail. And I think you loop around on some of those and it ends up being around 900. Is that how that works?
Yeah, typically when you hike all the trails in the Smokies, you're hiking way more than 900 miles. You have to do a lot of out and backs, a lot of loops of trails you have already hiked to get to some of the other trails you need as new trails or new miles. And so that's how that came about. So I think for me, on that map, I think I was somewhere around 1,200 miles.
Okay. Okay. That's quite a bit more than 817.
Yeah,
And I guess it depends on, and let's talk about that map for a second. So,
sure.
talk to us about what is the dollar map and tell everybody where they can get one.
Okay. I think every visitor center in the Smokies and most outfitters that are nearby the Smokies has these maps, and they're $1. It's just a basic map that shows all of the maintained trails, intersections, and mileage for each of those trails. And to be an 100 miler, you need to hike all of those trails that's on that map. They kind of use that map as their guideline or their guidebook for those trails.
And does that map ever change, you think? Do they ever take trails off of there or put, add new trails that they've decided to start maintaining?
They do, but they haven't in a long time. So when 900 miler was originally created, there were probably over 900 miles of trails. They've closed several of those trails, where the trails are just in very bad despair or of storm damage, and they closed them because they haven't gotten the manpower to go out and maintain those. So some of those trails they've taken off the map. They're considered closed trails now.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they're not required.
They're not required. If they're not on the map,
Right.
basically, they're not required.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
And I know, so the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, for all the listeners, it's the #1 visited national park. And I know the park is broken down in sections. And I
Mhm.
think you can start tackling each of those sections in section hikes to kind of start highlighting off your trails on the dollar map. So talk to us a little bit about what those sections are and what the names of the areas are.
Okay. According to the 900 miler website, there's an Excel sheet on there that you can download and print out. They have it broken down into nine sections of the Smokies, and those 9 sections are the Great Balsam area, Hazel Creek area, Deep Creek area, 20 Mile Fontana area, Cataloochee area, Big Creek Cosby area, the Sugarlands Greenbrier area, Cades Cove, Abrams Creek area, and Tremont Elkmont area.
And I know, is there another way to say like the Tennessee side versus the North Carolina side, and those sections are broken down on each side?
Most of these areas are both areas. Like Hazel Creek is all North Carolina. Deep Creek is as well. 20 Mile Fontana is mostly North Carolina. I think there's some of that in Tennessee. But yeah, it's a good way to look at it. You can kind of split it between from the AT side and go from, all right, this is North Carolina side, this is the Tennessee side.
You and I talked about a guidebook, I guess I would call it, and you called it the Brown Book. And I had no idea what that was. And I was a little bit jealous. I'm like, oh, I've never heard of the Brown Book. So explain to us what this Brown Book is and why it was useful for you in tackling your dollar map.
Mm-hmm. What I bought the Brown Book when I was doing my 900 miler. The book, it breaks down each trail, each of the maintained trails in the Smokies. It gives you the elevation, the mileage, different points along the way. And if you use this book with the $1 map, it shows you the map keys as well, so you can find it on the $1 map. So it's a real good reference to look, read the book, know the trail before you go. And then if you need to reference it with the map, you can do that as well.
Is there a name for the Brown Book?
It's just called the Hiking Trails of the Smokies.
Okay, the Hiking Trails of the Smokies. And I want to make sure I put that in the show notes as well, because I think that Brown Book will be vital for anyone looking to take on this challenge. And I know there's another book, and I hope I don't mispronounce her name, Liz Etnier. It's Day Hiking All of the Trails in the Smokies. Are you familiar with that book as well?
I am. I don't have that book. My sister does, and she uses it quite often. It basically breaks down the 900 miler as day hikes. Every one of them is a day hike, and it shows the best routes that she has found to do that in as day hikes.
And that would be a good asset to have as well.
Absolutely.
And I also know that when you're done with this, there's a website you can go on and you can claim your patch. And I think they give you a certificate. So talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, when you finish your 900 miler, you'll fill out your paperwork, which is basically the dates that you hike the trail, the mileage, your mileage. And then you submit all of this to the 900 miler club. There's a website. I think it's called 900milerclub.org, I think.
Okay. And I'll make sure to add that to the show notes as well.
Okay.
Now, when you say you submit your hikes, do you have to submit each hike you did? That way you can add them up to 900 or 1200 or whatever it ends up being?
No, you don't really submit it until you're finished with it. So you kind of keep a
Okay.
journal as you go. That's what most everyone that I know has done has done.
Yeah. So, unlike me, who I really don't keep a journal, but if I end up doing the Smokies, I will definitely be keeping a journal. So now that we know kind of a little bit about the Great Smoky Mountains National Park 900 miler, getting our dollar map, some resources, what actually prompted you to want to start that challenge?
My sister kind of encouraged me to come hiking with her a few times, and I kept telling her, "No, I've got to run. I'm going to go run this, run that, run this event, run that race." And finally, I went with her and really fell in love with being out there again. I forgot what it was like to be in to be in the mountains and be away from cell phones and not having a PR, a personal record as far as running goes. But I started hiking with her again, and that was nice. And so we were talking after our fourth or fifth time hiking together that about this challenge, and she hadn't committed to it at that time yet either. And while we were hiking, we were like, well, after we sit down and looked at the mileage that we've hiked, we're like, well, we're halfway through. Why don't we just go ahead and do this? It'd be kind of fun. And so we both agreed to make this a priority and make it a goal. And we've done a lot of miles together, she and I.
Nice. So how did you guys go about completing each section of the park? I mean, did you say, okay, hey, let's start over here in Cades Cove. Let's start over here, what's closest to the house. Kind of walk us through how you strategically planned to do this.
I do think that we started closer to the house first. So we started with the Cades Cove area, Abrams Creek area first. And it's probably maybe the least trafficked area of the Smokies. Not the Cades Cove part, but maybe the Abrams Creek area. But we started there and we kind of worked on one area for a month, and then we'd move to another area the next month, and then the next area, and so on.
Now, were you guys clicking this stuff off like on the weekends, like during the week, or just whenever you could get out?
Yeah, we were doing Saturdays and sometimes Sundays. So we would go out. I would go out without her some and do backpack trips. So I would go out and do a 15-mile day Saturday and a 10-mile day Sunday, and do 3 or 4 trails at a time.
Nice. And I know you said to me that planning was just as fun as the hiking. So talk to us about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. It was fun because you have to plan. You have to plan where you start and where you end. You can't always just get back to your car. You'll have to hike back, hitch a ride, or plan a shuttle. And I've done all 3 of those.
Yeah, I can imagine. And some of those hikes, I mean, they're 20 plus miles,
Mm-hmm.
and that's after you've dropped a car in one area,
Yeah.
or and drove to another area, and you're hiking back to the car. I mean, that's a full day.
It is a full day. Yeah. So there were times that we would go to North Carolina and drop a car, drive to Clemens Dome, and spend all day hiking down to get our car, and then drive back up to Clemens Dome. So that's like hour and a half away each way. So
Yeah, that's a commitment. That is a true commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And you did talk a little bit about the people that you met out there that were actually also doing the same thing and having a connection with them and sharing rides and things.
That's right. Through our hiking page, Facebook page, Hiking the Smokies, that we found several folks that are doing their maps as well. And so it was kind of cool to friend them and schedule some hikes with them. It was really cool because we could always share rides. I met a friend, Jimmy, in North Carolina, that it was kind of cool to meet him and somewhere in North Carolina, and then drive over and hike back to his vehicle, which saved us both some driving time. And it was really nice.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I can't even imagine how you would do that by yourself. I guess
It's
people
hard.
have done it, but
Yeah.
yeah. And is it even possible to, I guess, what I would call through hike the park?
Yeah, it can be done. I have a friend, Benny, who did that. He hiked all the 900 miles, I think in 43 days nonstop.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. And I know I'll be interested to hear maybe how you did this. I know everybody that has hiked the Appalachian Trail has gone through the Fontana Dam area of the
Mhm.
park, and the logistics to complete your dollar map in this area is a little bit unique. So talk to us about that.
It is very unique because we have Fontana Lake right there, and some of those trails on in farther up the AT from Fontana Dam, you can't get to by car, so you have to either hike in, backpack, or boat shuttle. And we did a lot of boat shuttling. We would usually end on a boat shuttle, but we've also done some where we've hiked or boat shuttle in the mornings and hiked up and out the other side.
So do you have to plan, the boat shuttle only runs certain times of the day. So you want to make sure like, okay, we got to be done by X amount of time. Have you ever pushed it to, we're not going to make this shuttle?
Yeah, so many times. I hope they're still there waiting on us. But
Yeah.
I friended the guy that was our shuttle a lot in the last few years. And he was a really cool guy. He would leave his boat for us and leave the keys in it. And so he would just
Oh,
leave his boat
wow.
anchored off for us. Yeah. So when we got there, no matter what time we got there, the boat was there. We just have to start it up and drive it out.
I knew there was a reason I needed you on the podcast. You got connections, Johnny.
That's right. Well, you make those when you're out there doing those things and meeting people.
Right. And are there some particular trails in the park that if you see somebody on those trails, for certain they're doing their dollar map because they're not very widely traveled?
Yeah, there are. There's a lot of trails in the Smokies where there really isn't any. There's not a viewpoint or it's not a destination hike. It's just you're hiking the trail to get from one end to the other. So there's several of those, and when you see somebody on those, yeah, it's like, oh, I know what you're doing. Yeah, there's nothing up there, but I know what you're doing. Yeah, yeah.
So overall, how long did it actually take you to complete your dollar map?
It took me about 2.5 years. That's just
Okay.
doing the weekend hikes here and there.
Now, did you start off kind of nonchalant and get more aggressive, or was it like, nope, we're
Mhm.
going gung ho from the get go?
Yeah, I started out nonchalant, just kind of just going out with sis on Saturdays and doing, a 8-10 mile day and feeling good about it. We did that for a while before we decided that we were going to attempt the 900 miler. And then once we had both attempted it, we were going to do it or committed to doing it. We stepped it up quite a bit and just started getting really aggressive with it.
Very nice. So, what would
Mhm.
you say to any of the listeners out there wanting to take on this challenge and start section hiking in the Smokies and complete their dollar map? What advice would you give them?
You know, I tell people this all the time. I love to encourage people. I always do. There's not a trail in the Smokies that anyone can't hike. Every trail out there anybody can do at your own pace. You don't have to go out there and hike and keep up with me or keep up with anybody else. Hike it at your own pace. It's doable. It's very doable. Plan it, put in the homework, figure out your shuttling, study your maps, know where you're going to go, how you're going to do it, and go do it. I mean, it's obtainable.
Very good. And it sounds like, is there a particular site someone can go to find out who the shuttle drivers are in the Smokies?
Yeah, one thing about our page, Hiking the Smokies, a lot of people that are working on their maps will post on there like, "Hey, I need this. I need a ride from here to here. Is anybody available?" And I'm glad that we were able to provide that medium for them to go to and ask those questions because it's paid off for so many people that are working on their maps. Like if I'm going to hike a particular trail off of Newfound Gap Road and I'm going that way, I can certainly pick somebody up and drop them off.
Nice. Well, let's talk about that a little bit more.
Mhm.
So, you actually started Hiking the Smokies page on Facebook, and obviously, your clicking off the dollar map prompted that, or talk to us about how that kind of started.
Yeah, I think when about the time Sis and I had decided that we were going to complete the map, we were looking for some resources as far as other hikers and information on certain trails that we didn't know about. And so I created this page, and very quickly it filled up with tons of hikers, and it kind of grew from there.
And it's an extremely valuable resource because I go on there and
Certainly.
there's people posting
Mhm.
pictures of trailheads and their hikes and, different information about roads that are closed and what they saw when they got there. So I encourage anybody that's listening, join that Facebook page, Hiking the Smokies. So, Johnny, you have a passion for the Smokies. That's very clear. So, do you have a passion for a particular part of the park, and maybe why?
Okay, I actually do. I had never been to this area before in my life until doing this map, and it's the Hazel Creek area. I absolutely love the Hazel Creek area. There's so much history there, especially back before Fontana Lake was backed up. It was just really just mountain streams and small mountain towns. To me, that area is just I don't know. It's just to me, it's the most beautiful part because it's just Hazel Creek is beautiful. I always hike it in the fall. The leaves in that area, and it's hard to get to because you have to cross the lake, boat shuttle over to get there.
So is it on the Fontana Dam side of
It
the
is, yeah.
Smoky?
It's on
Okay.
the North Carolina side. It's in between Fontana Dam and the tunnel to nowhere.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us about that tunnel to nowhere now that you bring that up, because that is a very heavily visited place.
It is. So, and I don't remember the year. I think it was in the 40s. I think 43. They wanted to build a road that goes from Bryson City. It's going to follow the inside of the Smokies, and it was going to end out at Fontana Dam, and that was going to be called Lakeshore Drive. And as they started the tunnel and started working on the road, I can't remember if there were some issues with the funding and government, and then the erosion and all this other stuff with the park. And so the project was permanently halted. So that's kind of where it went. It would have been nice to have had that road, but I'm kind of glad it's not there. Yeah.
Is that a popular place for? And one thing that I just thought of that I failed to bring up when you and I chatted, there's a certain ceremony that happens when people finish their 900 miler. So talk to us about that a little bit.
Sure. So when a hiker finishes the 900 miler, most of the time they'll communicate it to others, and we'll all go out there and we'll take our trekking poles and we'll build a hiker tunnel, and we'll that's where we take our trekking poles. We'll just raise them up over our heads out in front of us, and as the hikers finish their last few steps, they're walking actually under a hiker tunnel.
And it's very cool. It is the pictures
cool
I've
thing.
seen are very cool. So when I get ready and I finish, I'm gonna need you out there with a very long. What's the most amount of people you've seen on that hiker tunnel?
I think Benny had the largest showing for his final. I think it was on his second map, and I don't remember how many people he had. I want to think it was 30 or 40 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Johnny, before I let you go, you've got another challenge. Okay, so you took on the Smokies and conquered that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you decided you wanted to take on it's called the SB 6K Carolina Mountain Club Challenge. So talk to us a little bit about what is that, and then we'll get rolling. I've got tons of questions on that too.
Okay. The South Beyond 6,000 is an organized program for encouraging hikers to climb the 46,000 foot peak summits in the Southern Appalachian Mountains, which ranges from like Roan Mountains over to the Black Mountains near Asheville, of course, the Smokies, Great Balsams, Plot Balsams, Craigie Gardens. So that's a very unique challenge.
And I know before you took on this challenge, you decided that you needed to get better at your navigational skills, because I think about half of the peaks are technically bushwhacks. So talk to us about what you did to prepare yourself for the challenge.
Yeah, that's right. I met up with some folks from the search and rescue team in Haywood County, and they were offering an advanced navigation class, and I signed up for it. But because it was an advanced class, I didn't take the basic class. I had to take an exam to see if I would qualify for that advanced class, and I took that exam and passed. So I went and took this advanced class. It was really great because it really encouraged me even more. I wanted to do this South Beyond 6,000 while I was working on my 900 miler. That's what I was thinking about at first, and I'm like, well, it's a lot of off trail stuff, and I'm not really comfortable with that. And then this class came up, and I took the class, and we did some drills of off trail hiking and navigating, and it absolutely boosted my confidence 100% as far as off trail hiking. And that's why and that's basically when I thought, yeah, man, this is great. I've got this. I can do this. And so I moved forward from there.
Nice. So when you were out there, I know on the Carolina Mountain Club website, they have some sparse directions on how to get to the particular peaks. But did you have, one or two maybe in particular that gave you some issues since it was a bushwhack?
I knew where some of the trails were that led to the top, but finding the actual summit on each of the summits sometimes was challenging. So once I got to the top, I would walk around for a while looking for a benchmark or some flagging tape or something. And that's when you know you're top. Or a rock cairn. Those are everywhere.
And it's very deceiving because I went up. The only one I've bushwhacked, I guess, would be Mount Hallback, and a ranger actually told me how to get up there. So I literally dropped my pack, went up to Mount Hallback, Yay, celebrated. Oh, I'm cool. I just bushwhacked. I mean, came back down and was nowhere near where I had
Oh,
dropped my pack. So that told me right there I needed
yeah.
to get my, I mean, I just blindly kind of was like, well, it's not that far. And I
Uh-huh.
wasn't that far from my pack, but it just showed me real quick how you can get off course.
Absolutely can. Yeah. That's a very good point as far as knowing where you're going up and remembering certain trees or certain features of the trail while you're off trail and looking for those on your way back out.
I didn't look for anything. I went up, saw it, and I was like, oh boy, I'm in trouble now.
Yeah, that's funny.
And dumb went up there with nothing. So yeah, don't do that, anybody. So,
That's
how
right.
long did it actually take you to hike all the 40 peaks?
I started in June of 2019, and I finished my final summit on December 31st of 2019.
Well, happy New Year for that.
Yeah,
Did you
absolutely.
plan that out?
I knew going into December I had 4 or 5 summits left, and I really wanted to get those done in 2019. But I was okay if I didn't get them done in 2019. But I had some time off between Christmas and New Year's, and so I just spent that week in North Carolina, where I'm always at. Seems like. So I spent that week over there hiking those last 4 or 5 summits. It was great.
So, did you save a particular summit for last?
No, I really didn't. The summit that was my last summit, I was near it with my sister back in the summer, and we got a later start than what we wanted to, and so I didn't get to go back that last summit. So we had to turn around and go back. So I had to go back and get that summit. So that was my last hike, which was Plot Balsam. It was what is that, a mile and a half, a little over a mile and a half off trail to
Oh,
get to
wow.
it.
Now that's a
Yeah,
long, yes, that's pretty long. You
yeah.
better watch your trees and your markings on that
And
one.
the thing about off trail hiking, you can go out and hike a normal trail, and it's like your pace is what 2.5, 3 miles an hour, but off trail it's a lot slower and it takes a lot more time. So on a trail, a mile and a half is easy, what 20, 30 minutes, but off trail it could be an hour and a half.
Yeah, I can imagine. Ooh.
Yeah,
So, what advice would you give someone that wants to take on this challenge?
definitely study a map and compass, and certainly do your homework. Study those maps. Those maps are very, very important. And definitely look at the Carolina Mountain Club's website on the South Beyond. There's a lot of directions on there, but they are vague. So take that information and your map and just make your own routes. But there are some qualifying things you need to have that summit qualify for the Southbound 6,000, which it has to be a 5 mile hike. I think the elevation gain of I think it's 500 feet. There are some summits that are a lot less than 5 miles, and you can't use those at all for your qualifying peak. You have to go a different route.
Okay, so you can't just pull up to the parking lot, jump on
Exactly.
up to
Yeah.
one of the peaks and back down to
Right.
the car kind of
Right.
thing. It's a
Right.
particular, you have to go a certain distance and have to
Yes.
have a certain elevation within that distance.
Hmm. That's right.
Nice. And I will make sure I'm going to add that Carolina Mountain Club website into the show notes too, because that's an extremely interesting challenge.
It is.
Well, Johnny, very much. All right. I've got one more question for you before I ask you questions that listeners want to know. Compare Johnny that went on the AT with his 50-pound pack to how Johnny would be packing now after completing the Smokies, after doing this challenge. Compare those two Johnnies.
Oh wow. Um, I pack a lot lighter now. Even for an overnight trip, I pack so light. Like my pack is, I think I've got a 17-liter pack.
Oh,
I,
wow. That's a
I,
day pack, Johnny.
that's right, and I can put overnight stuff in that pack and use that pack. I have, but also when I do a lot of off trail stuff, I take an even smaller pack because you're going through Rhodo and Mountain Laurel that are sometimes pretty thick, and having a smaller pack's easier to navigate underneath some of that stuff. To compare the two, yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot over the years. One of the things I learned too is if I have a chance to hang my pack in a tree and jet off trail with my smaller pack, I'm going to do that versus taking a heavier pack up to the summit or whatever too. So that's something I learned too along the way. Yeah, I think I just pack differently. I think I eat differently. I don't pack as much unnecessary items as I used to.
Very good. And there's also something I think you told me every year when you have your yearly review at work. What do you ask your boss for every year? I find this great.
Yeah, every year by year in review, I ask my boss if I could have 5 months off to go hike the AT. And every year he says no. So, yeah.
And thus the section hiking, Johnny. There you go.
That's right. And that's right. That's exactly right.
All right, let's get into these 3 questions here. So question number 1, what is your one luxury item you carry with you no matter what?
I pack so light, I really don't even take a luxury item, but I did put on here that I take a candy bar, because after a long hike, it's nice to have that comfort food of like, oh, this is my reward for the day. This is my after dinner, before bed snack. That's really, really good.
Well, I hope it's king size candy bar, Johnny.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I hope you got a king size Snickers or something going.
Need the calories. That's right. Oh my goodness.
And what is something, well, let's answer this one first. So what's your favorite trail meal?
I put on the list that I like the Mountain House brand of the turkey dinner casserole. That's, to me, it's really, really good as far as the hydrated foods go. I know there's healthier options out there, but I mean, I keep those on my shelf in my office at the house, just as ready meals. Like if I need to go for an overnight trip real quick, I can grab a bag and go. It's got plenty of salt, which salt's great when you're hiking.
Yeah, salt in and of itself is a luxury item, isn't it?
That's true. That's very, very true. But yeah, I think that's my favorite of that brand and that meal.
Nice. And what is something you failed at and learned from while hiking?
Tying knots. You tie. I'm a hammock camper. I like to sleep in my Hennessy, so I tie that thing up at night in the dark sometimes, or when it's cold. I struggled with quite a bit, so I've learned over those last few years really how to tie proper knots, and also rock climbing has helped with tying knots too. That was something that I didn't know. I wasn't very good at before, but now I'm really good at tying knots. Whether it's for my hammock or my food bag, I would hang my food bag in a tree and walk away and it'd fall. But
so did you, I know there's a book about tying knots. There's several books. You can go on the internet. Yeah. Did you kind of teach yourself or?
Yeah, I did. I kind of taught myself, and I incorporated some of that rock climbing knots into those knots that I use for tying my hammock and tying my food bags up at night.
Very good, Johnny. You know what? This has been a lot of laughs, but also I think we've given a lot of good information to the listeners. Great. So now we've come to the point in the podcast where the guest is going to sign off for us by reading their own journal entry, statement, or quote that will inspire us to keep hiking section by section.
Yeah, I'm one that I love to challenge. I love challenges. I love to challenge myself, and I do that every day. And the quote that I wanted to read was that if you don't challenge yourself, you'll never realize what you can become. And that just speaks a lot to me. I stepped out hiking a section of the AT for my birthday, doing something new that I didn't know about. I was really unfamiliar with it, but I was up for that challenge and learned a lot from it. And look at where I am now. I mean, it's a testament to what you can do or what you can become.
I would say it sure is, Johnny. I really appreciate you being on the podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. It was so much fun.
Yes, it was. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, Johnny. I enjoyed you talking to all of us about your Great Smoky Mountains National Park 900 miler, the SB 6K Challenge, and really encouraging everyone to get out and hike. I couldn't think of it earlier, but I'm glad you have moved beyond the movie wild with your backpack weight. Thanks for challenging us, Johnny, to figure out what we can become. Next up, we have Let's Talk Gear with Steve Kammeyer as we continue our talks about gear. Welcome back to Let's Talk Gear with Steve Kammeyer. On today's episode, we're going to be talking with Steve and our special guest, Greg Bell, who joins us to talk about the Black Mountain Crest Trail located in the Black Mountains of North Carolina. This trail has some special features and characteristics, and Steve says Greg is our guy for learning more about this trail. Once we learn about the trail, we will focus on what should be in your pack for this type of hike. Welcome back to the podcast, Steve.
Hey, as always, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming back, and welcome for the first time, Greg.
Thank you so much for having me.
Really, really appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk about the Black Mountain Crest Trail for us. And I am ashamed to say, living 2.5 hours from that area, I have never been on this hidden gem in the western area of North Carolina. So I'm excited to hear about it from you. So we'll just go ahead and get started. We're going to mute Steve here for a little bit. I'm kidding, Steve.
No.
All right, Greg. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your passion for the North Carolina mountains?
My name's Greg. I live in Western North Carolina, actually just in the shadow of Mount Mitchell. And it's funny you mentioned your segue into Mitchell, living so close and not even knowing about the trail. Is I lived here for 25 years now, been to Mount Mitchell countless times and never knew about the trail.
Amazing. Yeah, I've been up to Mount Mitchell and I've been up to Mount Craig and maybe
Right.
Mount Hallback in that area, but I have no idea why I have not hiked the entire trail, and we'll get right into that. So tell us, okay, so you've been in the Western North Carolina area for 25 years. What is your passion with the North Carolina mountains?
It started when I was young. It's a fairly rural area, and the thing to do was go trout fishing and walk the mountains. So that kind of morphed into, as grew older, to actually getting out and backpacking. And we have just countless miles of trails, mountains, peaks right here in Western North Carolina. So it's what we do.
It's an amazing place to be, and I cannot wait to get into this because, as I called it, the Black Mountain Crest Trail, it's actually a hidden little gem.
Yep.
So let's dive right into it, Greg, and let's utilize your brain here. So where exactly is the trail located?
So it's just outside. It actually starts, the northern trailhead starts in Burnsville, North Carolina, just right outside of town. And then it ascends the ridge. It's a 3,500 foot climb to get to the ridge. And then it heads due south to Mount Mitchell, the highest peak in the east. The range itself is actually, it forms a J. If you're looking at it on Google Earth, it's just a big J sticking up there. And the Black Mountain Crest Trail traverses the long edge of the J. So there's actually 19 total peaks that make the Black Mountains, and you hike 10 of them.
Wow. Now, how long? So you hiked 10. I guess the peaks are over 6,000 feet. In what length? How long is that trail?
The entire, the trail itself is right at 11 miles. I've seen from 10.5 to 12 listed on various websites, but when I clocked it, I came in at 11 miles. 7.5 of those miles are along the ridge, and then you've got the 3.5 mile ascent to the ridge.
Nice. And when you say ascent to the ridge, basically, so the access to the trailheads, I know you've got a southern end and you've got a northern end. And I know there's also an access at a campground, Black Mountain Campground. Is that correct?
Correct. That's the Mount Mitchell Trail goes from the campground to the summit of Mount Mitchell. That's a nice hike too. That's a very well-traveled 5.2 mile hike to the summit.
And that has some major elevation change from the campground up to the summit, correct?
Correct. It is all up. I tried to do that on my birthday last year, and we got hit with snow about halfway up, and the situation deteriorated rapidly.
Wow. What month was that?
Late March.
Late March. Okay. So what is the highest point on the Black Mountain Crest Trail? Is it actually Mount Mitchell?
It is. Mount Mitchell is the highest point east of the Mississippi River, so it clocks in at 6687. And then the trail itself, you cross 10 6,000 foot mountains, and then it has, let's see here, 4 of the top 10 tallest peaks in the east as you're crossing the trail. So it's a pretty rugged trail. The you can start at Mount Mitchell at the summit, and then, like you say, hike to Mount Craig, which is the first mile of the Crest Trail, starting at that end. And then once you pass Mount Craig, it turns into a less traveled trail, more crossing peaks, and you're literally walking across the spine of the ridge, just right up and over each summit.
So let me ask you this. I know this trail has, I'm going to put in quotes here, special features
Yes.
that are very hidden, and a lot of people don't know about this. So talk to us about some of and I think it's a reason maybe some people actually don't hike this particular trail. So talk to us about some of those special features.
There are sections of the trail, and this isn't to scare anybody away by no means, because it's totally doable. Don't shake your head, Steve.
Yeah, Steve is in the background going, yes, this will scare you.
Where the trail is literally vertical. So there is, it's vertical. So they have sections of rope assisted climbing to navigate, 150 foot stretches of these vertical climbs. And they've actually added a new one on the more northern end before you climb up Winter Star Mountain. So those are very fun sections to do.
Steve is not, I don't think he's agreeing here.
Hey, well, you guys know me, and coming from the west, moving back over here to the east, for the last year, I've been dying to find a mountain type trail, something that's going to appeal to me. And after you've been above 10,000 feet for so long and been on so many different knife edge ridges and, hiking around here, these people call them mountains. They're just big grassy hills to me. But no.
Now, Steve, don't get.
I'll tell you what, though, the Black Mountain.
Don't be knocking Trail, our Appalachian mountains down, okay?
This hike did not disappoint in any way, shape, or form. Actually, about a day or so after we came back off of this hike, I was still really, really, really jazzed up. And I sat down and for about an hour and typed out this very lengthy trip report. And I think in this report, I was talking about all this up and down. And I mean, to me personally, anytime you're going over 1,000 feet per mile up, it's a pretty good haul. So like, Greg said, you've got 3.5 miles over basically 3,500 feet going up just to gain the ridge. And by the time you get up there, you're pretty whooped. And then the next thing you know, there's a 50-foot straight up vertical climb where you have to rope in, which the ropes are there year round. So you don't have to carry extra gear with you. But we will talk about gear here in just a minute. So you break your back, you get climbed up this one, you finally get the wind back in you. You turn the damn corner and there's another one, and then there's another one, and they're just endless. It seems like. But I mean, honestly, I don't remember, but there has to be at least 6, 7, 8 different places, and a couple of them are, doozies. So this
kind of hairy.
Yeah, this truly is an absolutely amazing trail. And like you guys said, it is really a hidden gem. And I feel so lucky to have a chance to be up there. And I know that Greg and I planned, and we're still planning. We want to do this in the winter time, which sounds amazing fun.
Greg, are you in for that? The winter ascent, I'm going to call it, of the Black Mountain Crest?
I am. It's been a bucket hike that I've wanted to do around here, but that's a hike that, knowing the terrain that's up there and the conditions that you'll face, you definitely want to do it with somebody that you trust and that can weather the storm, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And Steve's probably one of the only people that I know that I would undertake that with.
And likewise, I don't think that I would just show up with 3 feet of snow up there without seeing what I'm getting into first, which is why having Greg by my side for a summertime or a fall hike and actually knowing what we're getting into first. So, and this is why, Greg and I play off of each other so well. But now that we've done it during the summertime and we know what we have coming, wintertime sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Now it's time to do the winter. So Greg, would you say this is a trail that's hiked year round?
It is. I'd say from, late October, early November through March. It's only the people that know about it and are seasoned hikers that actually attempt to do it. For most of the winter, Mount Mitchell is closed. You can't access that end of it. And the only other way to get to it are very big, tough climbs. So it weeds a lot of people out. The trail has such a small footprint, being only 11 miles long, but it packs a lot of punch in those 11 miles. There's 8,000 feet of total elevation change, 6,000 feet of its climbing. It's a workout for sure.
And I was going to say too, I would imagine no matter what season you are, and I've been up there in the dead of summer to Mount Mitchell, and I am burning up at the base of Mount Mitchell. And by the time I get up there, I'm putting, my windbreaker on, my jacket on. I'm putting all my clothes on because it's 55 degrees. So talk to us a little bit about the weather changes, like even in the summer.
That's one of the biggest factors that if you're going to hike the ridge that you need to take into consideration, even though it's not out west with the big 9, 10, 11,000 foot mountains where you really expect these things to happen. This mountain range just sticks up in the middle of nowhere above everything. And there's actually been snow recorded on Mount Mitchell every month of the year. So the weather can go from
wow.
just like you say, t-shirts and shorts at the bottom to you need a puffy and a wind shell at the top.
So let's get into a little bit of our gear aspect here, and I'll let you guys kind of play off each other because I know that you overnighted this. So you went up, spent the night. So you guys probably had some light backpacks. And
No.
I know people know, okay.
No.
So
No.
I know people day hike the trail, and I know people backpack the trail, go about halfway, and then the next morning get up and do the rest of it. So talk to us about, I would say, your top 5, 6 gear items, no matter if you're day hiking or backpacking, that you need to carry with you on this type of trail for the conditions and what could possibly happen with the weather. And I don't know, Greg, if you want to start us off, and then Steve, you can chime in.
Sounds great. I'd say for any backpacker that's going to do it, they're going to be hopefully well set in their gear kit, what they actually load out with. But then, considerations heading into an environment like the Crest Trail would be to make sure that you have a capable shell, whether it's the summer, the winter, rain, thunderstorms, snow, then solid footwear. And then my other 2 would be on a trail like this is to make sure that you have a proper amount of water, and then food too. Even though it's only 11 miles, you're going to work out really hard. And, having the energy to sustain you across the entire ridge, I think is a very important thing.
Very important. And Steve, I've got one particular thing in mind, but can you chime in on something that you would recommend as far as gear?
This is one of those times, and Greg kind of touched on it, and this is a big running joke between Greg and I, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there, where actually water becomes a piece of your gear. If you think about it geographically, you're on the spine of a mountain ridge. There is no water up there. You're on the very spine of it the whole way. So, and with this being such a remote location and not a very well traversed, trodden trail, getting current information on this trail can be really, really difficult. Even Greg, living just a few miles away, when we were gearing up for this one and we were kind of getting ready and doing our little pre-stage planning, North Carolina was going through a bit of a drought season. So we really weren't sure about water. So Greg's saying, hey, we're going to have to start carrying water. We're going to have to carry a lot. So I'm not joking. Yeah, I carried 16.5 pounds of water.
Oh my God.
So yeah, you're talking about.
How many people went with you, Steve? Did you carry?
No, I know. Well, I mean, we all did.
Hey, Greg, did you pay him to carry your water, or what was up with that?
Man, that was my way of getting to him.
Yeah, he did too. So, and I mean, honestly, I love the guy to death, but boy, did he steer me wrong on that one. No, we all started off with just a tremendous amount of water, because honestly, we thought we were carrying 48 hours worth of water with us right from the very, very start. We didn't think we were going to see water at all. It turns out that we did find quite a few pools on that first 3,500 foot climb. But once we hit the actual spine, what we had was what we had. There was no water from there on. So this is one where you really do either want to start off with just a ton of water and just deal with it, because that is a heck of a climb to get up there, or do your best to get some kind of decent information from a local or from a website or whatever. And again, I think Greg touched on it too. Footwear. We've climbed. We've talked about climbing. There's a lot of rock. There's a lot of vertical climbs. Gloves. Gloves is another one that's really good to have. You will have your hands wrapped up in ropes many, many times. So this is one where even if it's just a light pair, even just a pair of, hardware gloves, mechanics gloves, gardening gloves, whatever, just anything doesn't really
Just
necessarily
have.
Yeah. It doesn't really necessarily have to be something, insulated or ski gloves or anything like that. Just some kind of a work glove.
And I'm thinking for me as well, going up there, and for you guys too, I'm sure you had like a Garmin InReach or a Spot device, because when I hear ropes and vertical climbs and things like that,
we had Greg. We had Greg.
Well, that's you had the water and Greg had the InReach, right?
That's it. I think that when if you're hiking solo on a trail like that, that is absolutely a solid choice to have with you. When we had 4 people with us, and we're kind of boneheaded sometimes, so we don't think about stuff like that. I've got Steve. Steve's got me. We're covered.
That's right. There you go. But so it sounds like to me, do your research, be prepared, make sure you have a good shell, rain gear, footwear for me. And, you know, if you're going solo, some kind of Garmin InReach or a spot device, and be, you know, to talk with the locals, find out what the water situation is, look at the weather for that as well. And really look at the weather and see what's going to happen over the next couple of days before you kind of take off on that trail.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Mount Mitchell is a state park. So the ranger station on Mount Mitchell is a great resource for current conditions and also for bear activity, because bears are very active on the Crest Trail. They will actually close. The only legit camping spot on the trail is at Deep Gap about halfway down, and they will close that camping area when the bears get really bad. So always do your research. You know, if you can call a ranger station, call a ranger station, know ahead.
And that is very good information to say that, you know, the camping area, there is one camping area. Be on the lookout for bear. I don't know if they require a bear container there. I know certainly you need to hang your food 100%.
Right.
And eventually,
that brings up another good point is, you know, bear canisters are not required there. But when you get up above 6,000 feet along the ridge, the trees get a lot smaller and a lot more closer cropped. So it's really hard to find a good solid place to properly hang your food, you know. So even though they're not required, a bear canister is a great idea.
Perfect. Well, listen, Greg, I cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your day to join us and talk about Steve's new favorite trail, the Black Mountain Crest Trail, where he is a camel and carries a lot of water. So thanks again, Steve and Greg, for chatting with us and letting us get to know more about your hiking pursuits. And I do hope it snows here soon, so you guys can get your winter ascent in this year. And thanks again for talking about the gear choices for your adventures. If you guys have gear questions for Steve, please email them to me at jesternc2212@gmail.com. If Steve answers your gear question on the podcast, I will send you guys some backpacking gear flea market stickers. Thanks everybody for listening, and happy section hiking.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with you. So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river. I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way, if you ever get lost or if the trail leads you astray. The music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods,
Support for this podcast and the following message come from Corient. Corient provides wealth management services centered around you. They focus on exceeding expectations, simplifying lives, and establishing legacies that last for generations. Leverage their exclusive network of experts to help achieve your personal and professional financial goals. As one of the largest integrated fee-only registered investment advisors in the U.S., Corient has experienced teams who can craft custom solutions designed to help you reach your financial goals, no matter how complex. Real wealth requires real solutions. Connect to a wealth advisor today at Corient.com.